Due to illness, the roles of the nice guys on business today will be played by Richard Dawson and Charles Nelson Riley.
I look at every book as two things. It's a book, by which I mean it is a vehicle of personal expression, creative expression, through which I reach out and try to touch people's lives. It is also a business. So I've launched 24 businesses. Now, of those 24 businesses / books, every one of them has been a success as a book, in my opinion. I'm proud of every one of them. As businesses, most of them have been failures.
Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday in detention for whatever it is we did wrong, but we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. You see us as you want to see us, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. But what we found out is that each one of us is the nice guys on business. Need an education on how to grow your business? The nice guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
Hey, welcome back. Funkin' fans, nice guy community. My name is Strickland Bonner. On the other side of the microphone, Mr. Doug Sandler. I'm being very careful to announce you guys in the right way, the way we love you.
And Strick, I think we should really, how do they do it in the New York Times when they have an error that they have to go back and they have to retract? Or it's called a retraction, right? We need to go back to Monday's episode and we will have to retract something that we said. Do you remember what we said on Monday?
No, what did we say?
So we said on Monday when we were talking about John D'Amato, who was our guest, and we started getting in the conversation about photography, and then we started talking about Netflix. Yeah. And I mentioned it to you about the DVDs that still go out, 4.3 million subscribers to their DVDs. And then I happened to say, well, they're not like Blockbuster and they went out of business. Now, I said Blockbuster went out of business. Now, apparently, Strickland, I have learned I'm wrong.
Dude, unbelievable. I did a quick search. Yeah. There is one Blockbuster physical store left in the United States, and they have apparently a hilarious Twitter feed. Here are some samples of some of their tweets. Okay, this is from July of this year, right? And if you want to find the Twitter feed, it's called @LoneBlockbuster. Okay, they call themselves the last Blockbuster.
Before you read the last Blockbuster tweets, can I just share with you that, again, I don't want to have to retract a retraction, because right now it says as of April of 2017, at least 10 Blockbusters are open across the U.S., a minuscule percentage of the 9,000 stores that existed in the 1990s, the Washington Post reported.
Oh, yeah, because I am actually reading this article now. It says, after all, they are the lone Blockbuster. Dish, who bought Blockbuster in bankruptcy, lists 10 stores still in existence.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify the retraction before we had to retract the retraction.
Right,
what would that be called? A re-retraction?
Right, I guess. Who knows? Oak Lawn Shopping Center. Apparently, all of the employees pitch in to manage and update the store's Twitter feed, posting random musings that are a mix of 90s nostalgia and walking the aisles, trying to pick that perfect weekend movie rental. So here's some of them. It says, we're watching Titanic and the boobs part starts in 15 minutes if you guys want to get down here. Right? In light of recent news, we're offering 20% off any movie where an American guy punches a Russian guy. And, this one's great. Just a reminder, VCR rentals will not fit through our quick drop return slot, no matter how hard you kick them.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can recall. I love the pictures that I'm looking on their Twitter feed. What's their Twitter handle? Do you have it?
@LoneBlockbuster, LONE, Lone Blockbuster.
Amazing, great photos. I probably still do have my Blockbuster membership card somewhere. I remember I had to I put it in the plastic sleeve, so that it would laminate it so that it didn't get all messed up. But I do believe I still have a Blockbuster membership card.
They have some really great tweets. It's funny. Just a few years ago, this was considered the good side of town, and the other side had all the clown problems. Oh, God.
Oh, this is great.
Here we go. Oh, and here's another one that's definitely quite timely now, I think. Listen, we would love to throw out all our films with sexual harassers in them, but then we'd only have 6 movies left.
Yeah, get rid of all the Kevin Spacey films. Jeez.
Exactly.
God, not good. if you have not had a chance to recommend the Nice Guys on Business podcast, could you do that while we still have a show, please? That would be good. We are not going out of business. Contrary to popular belief, we are going to be here until the end of eternity or until hell freezes over, whichever comes first.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you are listening on Overcast, just do us a favor. Click the little star button that is right next to the play button. That would recommend us. Go back to as many episodes as you possibly can. That would really help keep us as the number one business show on Overcast. We don't really care about iTunes because
they don't care about us.
They don't care about us. It really, it is that's my feelings that they don't care as much money that I've put into the store, the iTunes store, and as much money I've paid at Apple. You figure that they would care just about one person.
I know, right?
No,
you
they
would think.
don't. They don't.
Well, we do love Overcast, and how long have we been number one in business? I am still amazed at that, which is just, you guys are the best. We love you.
It's been at least 6 months. It's probably been closer to a year at this point. I'm okay. And I am okay with this. I love watching all the other shows kind of like sneak right up to us and then fade back down. It is amazing. They take a running start. I do watch them. You know me and the statistics.
I know. Yeah.
I watch them run up to us like NPR, right up to us. And then it goes away. Right. So we got, right now we have on our heels NPR, Gimlet. I can't remember the other shows. I think that we even have Jeff Gittimer's show is on our heels.
Oh yeah, he was the one guy that was number one for like a week, right?
Yeah, he beat us out for just temporarily. Sell or Die. Gimlet Startup. Yeah, How I Built This. That's an NPR show.
But of course, the only reason that he jumped ahead of us on Overcast is because you interviewed he and Jen.
I know. I helped him. I love him though. There is a new show that has been staying at the number 2 spot. They've been there for about the last 2 weeks called Gray Matter. I don't know what it's about, but I'm not going to listen to it because I don't want to give them the download.
Right? They could be like one download behind us, and if you listen, they're going to overtake us.
Yeah. Do you ever remember the reason why I even contemplated writing a book to begin with? I mean, I know to promote my speaking business. Did you remember some of my inspiration along the way?
No.
I went into Barnes & Noble. This is probably 4 years ago, and I saw this book. It was written by Bob Berg called The Go-Giver.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And so when I started to reach out, I reached out to Bob as a part of I wanted to find out a little bit just about his psyche and the thing that motivated him, inspired him to write his book, because I really wanted to get in the mindset of a guy that was going to propel my business to the next level. And I was thinking possibly writing a book was going to be the answer. But until I got confirmation of that through my speaking coach, I did not take action on it. But in talking to Bob Berg, which was the first domino to go down, he was so like reachable. There's these guys that you just don't think are ever going to reach back to you. But I would say within a day, like Tim Ferriss, right? Like within a day or two, I think that Bob Berg had responded to me, and I read the book, really loved his book, and then I discovered that he had a co-author on the book, John David Mann, who actually is the guy that we're interviewing today, that I interviewed today, and then I discovered in listening and reading more about John David Mann, he'd written something like, I don't know, some crazy number of books, like 23, 24. I don't know. Maybe you can check it out. So I don't have to. Yeah, he's written a lot of books. And I'm not talking about ghostwriter books. I'm talking about books that he like co-authored with other people.
Well, what's so interesting is, on his website that I guess this is his 3 most recent, maybe the 3 biggest, right? He's got The Go-Giver. He has another one called Total Focus, and he has another one called The Recipe. Now, what's interesting is all 3 of them, he is the co-writer on.
Right.
But what I love about it is they, like The Go-Giver, of course I've read, right? And but Total Focus I haven't read, and The Recipe I haven't read, but they look really interesting. But they look very interesting in really different ways. And I love that. So in other words, I'm guessing that he tries to find co-authors that are basically going to kind of expand what he writes about and how he thinks about things. There's certain guys like, Good to Great.
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins, right? When you get a Jim Collins book, you know what you're in for. You know exactly what you're in for. And you know that Doug Sandler is not going to buy it because that is not his, and that I'm going to check it out. Well, it looks like John David Mann really wants to like kind of hit all points and do different things, which is really cool, because it's nice to be able to open people up to different ideas and different thought processes and different ways to look at things.
Oh, and we totally talk about that as well. We talk about how he selects or doesn't select his co-authors or the people that he's going to do some writing for. Also talks about his first kind of stride into the world of self-publishing too, with his latest book, The Recipe. So really great interview. I think that you're going to love it. John David Mann does a great job of just explaining. He's a cool guy. I think you'll really like this interview. Strick, if you were ever to write a book, I would think that John David Mann would be the perfect author for you to co-author a book with.
Cool. I'll have to reach out to him.
Because I wonder how much he charges to do that. You think it's a lot?
I have no idea.
God, I would think, I don't know how much time that it would take to write. I know how much time it took to write my book, but my book wasn't any good. No, it's kind of good, but not like a John David Mann book. Yeah. Anyway, why don't we get to the interview with John David Mann here on the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Let's take it away. John David Mann rose to international prominence with The Go-Giver, a book that I just fell in love with. As soon as I picked it up in Barnes & Noble and was looking at the book, I said, I've got to connect with Bob Burg, not realizing there was another guy involved. So John David Mann, he actually was the co-author of the book with Bob Burg, which has sold more than 500,000 copies in 24 languages and has been hailed by many people, especially those that are in the business now, as one of the most important parables about business and life and of our time. I mean, that actually was said by Adam Grant. And it's praised by the likes of Arianna Huffington, even though that she slept her way to the top. Well, I mean, she wrote Sleep Revolution, so she did sleep her way to the top. I mean, literally, right? I knew I'd get John. I was trying to get him to laugh a little bit earlier. I knew I'd finally get him there. By Brian Tracy, Seth Godin, and Glenn Beck. The Recipe, which is another exciting project that John had worked on, is his 24th book. 24 freaking books. I cannot believe it. I am so excited, so proud, and frankly amazed that John even wanted to come on our show here. So I'm figuring he has no idea of the what the shenanigans that we're just about to get into. But JDM, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
I've changed my mind. I'm leaving.
Yeah, I've never had anybody actually do that, so that would actually be kind of good. And then I could do what I normally do, which is basically talk ad nauseum. So, John, from what I know about you, and I really am so honored that you decided to come on the show in spite of what you've heard, you really are a nice guy.
Oh, don't let that get out.
I love your journey. I love your story, and you've written so many of them. So can you tell our community, just give me a thumbnail sketch on who John David Mann is?
It's Tommy Lee Jones in the last frames of The Fugitive. Don't tell anybody, okay? Yeah. So the sketch of my life is kind of weird, and I'll make it short, but it's a good long shaggy dog story. I'm a writer. I write books, but it is not how I started out. I've gone through a sort of maze of interlocking careers. I started out as a kid, as most of us did. I started out as a classical musician, composer, cellist. I was a concert cellist. My dad was a choral conductor and a musicologist. And so that was really my life, my background, my history, my life. And that was my career. And I early on got into education. Some friends and I co-started a high school when I was 17. And I actually went to that school, graduated, went back and taught there. And it was an amazing experience, founding a school and sending our graduates off to places like Harvard and Yale and so forth. I think that's where I really got my taste of entrepreneurship, my taste of the possible outside the boundaries of normal categories. I got very interested in nutrition and wellness and natural foods and spent years in that sphere. From there, I migrated into business, got involved in direct selling, and was very involved in that sphere. And all along the way, I seemed to be the guy who would edit the newsletters or edit the bulletins or edit the stuff to get edited. And so I spent, in the direct selling world, spent years as a professional editor, edited a series of business journals and edited some books. And editing led to a love of writing. Well, I always had a love of writing. And at this critical turning point in 2004, Bob Burg ruined my career.
He ruined my book. Nobody can actually write a book as well as he says. So every book I've picked up since that book, I'm like, shit. I'm trying to figure out how to find another book like that one. I got to go back to the books that were written before him, like Think and Grow Rich and, those kind of books.
Exactly. Well, here was my plan at the time. I was on my way to Hollywood. My plan was to become a screenwriter. I was studying screenwriting with a brilliant teacher in Hollywood, studying every screenplay I could get my fingers on, which was every screenplay that ever existed practically. And Bob said, listen, hey, I knew him because I'd edited some stuff of his. He said, I got this book that I want to write, but I really can't write it. It's not the kind of thing I do. I write how-to stuff. This is like a story. Will you write it with me? If you write it, I'll market it. And
famous last words.
I was like, man, I don't have time for this. This is like a distraction. I don't see it. He had this idea for the go-giver. I get it. Go-getter, go-giver. It's a play on words. It's kind of a counterintuitive thing. Yeah, cognitive dissonance. Cool. I just didn't see it. I don't know. But I said to my fiance, it's Bob. Right. And because it's Bob, I took a look and I started to play with it. And I wrote a scene which was actually quite late. It happens quite late in the book, the scene with Deborah Davenport, where she talks about the law of authenticity. And I wrote that scene, or a draft of that scene, and shot it off to Bob, and he just flipped out, and we flipped out together over email, back and forth. And I would sketch stuff out, shoot it to him. He already had a bunch of stuff drafted. I took that, I kind of played with it, made paper dolls, shifted it around, shot it back to him, and in 6 weeks we had a draft. And that was the beginning of my career as an author.
So Bob's book was actually the first time you had done something on that scale?
Yeah, you call it Bob's book, I noticed. I know what you're supposed to say.
Yeah, we talked about you.
Doesn't realize that exists.
Hold on a second. What's really funny about that, and we spent, and not because you said, hey, listen, I need to make sure that we understand how this came down, but because I said, how does this exactly work? Okay, are you a ghostwriter? And then I started to understand that I didn't want to insult you before I brought you on the show. I usually wait till you're on the show to insult you, so I'm not going to do it before the show. So
I was at an event that Bob did, a big marketing event some years ago, a conference, and I was in the men's room doing what we do in the men's room, and a guy stood up at the stall next to me and says, "Hey, so he had heard I'd spoken from stage. He said, "Hey, so you write, I hear." I said, "Yeah." He said, "So you worked on you had something to do with the Go-Giver." I said, "Oh, yeah, I did." And he's we're both doing our business, and he said, "So like, what do they do? They like bring you at the end to like fix up the grammar and the spelling and stuff?" I didn't even know.
You know what? Fuck you.
He just flushed the toilet, and I flushed the toilet, and we both moved on into our separate lives. But
that's hilarious.
You asked about ghostwriting. So there are books I've done that are other people's memoirs, where really I take their story as told to me.
Yeah.
And I fashion a book out of it. And that's ghostwriting, where basically I disappear into their story. Although people who know me always find vestiges of me popping out in all the scenes. But, someone like Rita Davenport or John Addison or Bob Beckel, I've done their memoirs. And my job is to be an actor and play their story in a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I got you.
And there's the partnerships with Bob, with my friend Chef Charles Carroll, and this book, The Recipe, where they're really like, it's a 50-50 proposition. It's like a marriage almost. We both throw our DNA in there together and we produce this child, which is this book which looks a little bit like both parents.
But what's so interesting about that though, and you know this through working with Bob has got this larger than life personality, and we've already discussed this, that, hey, listen, marketing wasn't your thing. And as the guy that's marketing the book, even though he was not like, hey, Bob Berg, if anybody knows Bob, knows that he is not he's a self-promoter, but he's not an egotistical, sociopathic self-promoter. I mean,
the opposite.
You're right. Exactly the opposite of that. He's just this amazing guy that's willing to give the shirt off of his back if need be. But even so, every time I think Go-Giver, I don't necessarily, I don't think John David Mann, and not in a negative way. I think Bob Berg, and I wonder how that happens, though. How does that happen exactly?
Sure. It happens because, Bob is the public face of the Go-Giver movement. And so there's a natural association of Bob with the book. And it's the same with, to some extent, that's true with, let's say, Spencer Johnson and Ken Blanchard. People who know Ken Blanchard because of his many, 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 many books, they see the 1 Minute Manager and they say, Ken Blanchard. Well, of course, Spencer Johnson was, was the other half of the Lewis and Clark.
That's right.
But it's natural because Bob is again the public face of the book, and that's been true. I've done 5 books now with my buddy, the former Navy SEAL sniper Brandon Webb. Mm-hmm. I did his story, and most of those are told first person through his eyes. So they're sort of like a memoir, but to Brandon and me, they're 50-50 propositions. There's stuff in there that he didn't even know. He didn't even read until the book came out and he read it and said, holy shit, you did a nice job with this. And to us, it's a co-creation. But to the world, it's like Brandon wrote this book. Jeff Olson wrote The Slight Edge. Well, Jeff Olson didn't really write The Slight Edge. I mean, it was a partnership. I wrote The Slight Edge, but it's based on Jeff's stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's natural that people, never heard the name John David Mann. And that's, that's okay, because what I love to do
is go to the bank. I love going to the bank, man. It's my favorite place to go.
So interesting. I am not a marketer, as you said. It's not what I love to do. And yet here I am with this book. I am, for the first time, really fully engaged in the marketing and promotion, and it's a whole new experience for me. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, I love that, because I think what it will show you as somebody that is a great writer and again, these are your words, not a marketing guy. I was a much better marketing guy than I was a writer, and again, part of what I always tell everybody, and please punch me in the face if this is wrong, but I tell everybody writing a book is 20% writing, 80% marketing, and tell me that, just take the other side of it, or tell me I'm right. But just give me your opinion on that.
So, Doug, let me explain something about how the internet works. I can't punch you in the face, because we're in different physical locations.
Yeah, I safely say that. But give me your opinion on that. Tell me more.
But here's some truth to that. Or here's the truth to that. You could see it as 80-20 in a sense, in that you can write the most wonderful book in the world, and if you don't have not just the marketing, but if you don't have the right title, mm-hmm. the right cover, forget about the rest of the marketing activity, it's dead. I studied screenwriting with this brilliant teacher, Hal Krosman, and I took many, many courses and all kinds of techniques that he taught. He taught one entire course on page 1 of the script. Because most film scripts, most screenplays are, if not bought or rejected, at least put into the pipeline or put into the slush file, translation, trash can, based on the first page. Yeah. It's just the truth. And most buying decisions of a book are based on the cover or the title or the back book. So, here's the thing. I look at every book as 2 things. It's a book, by which I mean it is a vehicle of personal expression, creative expression, through which I reach out and try to touch people's lives. It is also a business. So I've launched 24 businesses. Now, of those 24 businesses / books, every one of them has been a success as a book, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of every one of them. As businesses, most of them have been failures. A few have been successes. That's like any entrepreneur who starts.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not put it under any different magnifying glass as business itself. You're going to have, 2 of the 24 probably struck gold in a spot where, that's statistically, that's what's going to happen.
There you go. And so you're right in that the marketing, promotion of a book is enormous. It's gigantic, because if you don't, you can have a golden piece of content, but if nobody reads it, nobody buys it, then who cares? And there are people who write books that are just because they want to have written it. Mm-hmm. They want to give it to their kids. Legitimately, give it to their kids, give it to their descendants, and they want to have their few friends share it. They want their mom to read it. And God bless them. That's great. That's not what I want to do. I want to touch millions of people's lives. That's my deal. That's what I'm here for. So for me, if I write a beautiful book and no more than 5,000, 10,000 people buy it, I feel the pangs of pain, brother.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I get it. I
want it out there. I want it out there.
Let's talk about the process a little bit of your writing day. I can remember I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First. And for me, the process, it was totally not fun. Maybe it was because I committed 20 weeks of 10 pages a week, come hell or high water. I was going to get the shit done no matter what. Yeah. But, what is like a typical day of a writer look like, when you do this for a living?
There's 3 kinds of activity that I do. And the first is gathering. And for a book like Bob Berg and I are coming out with a new Go Giver book next spring in April. It's called The Go-Giver Influencer.
Mm-hmm.
It's another parable, another story. In this book, there is a very large dog named Solomon, and there is a small Russian blue cat whose name I will not divulge.
Okay.
I wrote this book, Bob and I worked on it together, and I don't want to imply that Bob doesn't write, because he does, and Bob and I work very much as a partnership. I do the heavy lifting, and he'll be the first to say it, but he's very involved in the wording and the this and the that. Anyway, we put this manuscript together this last spring, a couple months ago. For a book like that, gathering means I read a bunch of Bob's stuff. Bob and I talk. Gathering for a book like The Recipe, my book with the chef that just came out. I read the chef's other books. He's written some how-to books on cooking and being a chef and being a food manager. I visit him. I cook with him. I talk with him. I practice in the kitchen. Gathering is I gather material. It might mean listening to people's lectures, reading their books. It's a lot of interviewing over the phone. I download the transcripts. I have them, the interviews, I have them transcribed. I'm gathering stuff. Next step is creating. It's inventing. It's where, I've done all this research. It's a research. I've done all the research. I now forget it all. And I sit down to try to actually, not to try, but to start the book. And that's the creative part. It is the hardest part. It's the first month of pregnancy where nobody can see you're pregnant because you haven't gained any weight.
But you feel like shit.
Worse.
But you feel like shit.
It's the hardest part.
Yeah.
But it's in a way the most rewarding part. And how that looks is I get up first thing in the morning and I sit down in an armchair with a cup of hot tea and a pad of blank paper and I it's almost like meditation. I try to make my mind blank and I take a pen, I put headphones on, music that I love that's calm and peaceful, and I say, okay, world, universe, God, blankness, what do you got for me? It's like sitting on the side of a pond in the dawn.
It's the cursor blinking, and it was the worst experience for me. I had to get out of I wrote most of my books sitting in Starbucks. I don't know where you write your books, but I
can't do that at the computer. That part.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I have to sit in a chair. Once I've got stuff and I'll fill a page to 1 to 2 pages of a plain legal pad, letter size pad, with scribbles that even a pharmacist couldn't read. And on that, 90% will be shit that you will never read because it's garbage. But there'll be 10% in there that's going to make it into the book. It's going to make the book what it is. It's gold.
Wow.
I pan for gold in there. Once I get that in the computer, then comes part 3 of the 3 steps. And that's developing content on the computer. And that I do all on the computer. And that's like sawing the lumber into boards and nailing them up and using the sander to sand it and all that stuff.
Everybody's got a different process though, right? I mean, that 3 steps,
Yes.
or is that something that you've learned from somebody?
That's just mine. No. Some people got to write first thing in the morning, every day, same way. Some people have to go to a coffee shop like you do. There are times where I get stuck and I have to go to the Starbucks because there's nothing familiar around, none of my stuff I can get lost in. So yeah, I mean, there are, I think one of the biggest challenges in writing is you need to learn what process works for you. And there is a different process for everyone. And it has a pattern. It has a shape. It has an arc to it. I think the biggest challenge in writing is the tendency to edit yourself as you're creating.
Yeah.
That's the killer, man.
Yes. Yeah. My coach told me do not edit. Just stream of consciousness. Just write it down. Write it down.
You know what it's like? It's like this. It's like going on a first date and you're sitting there, and while you're sitting there, you're saying, I wonder if she's going to say I'm a good kisser. I wonder if she's going to go back and she's going to go back and tell her friends.
Oh boy.
Do I smell? You do that and you are not having a good date. And that's what this is like. When you're writing, you have to just let go and say, man, there's going to be crap on the page. I do not care. You've got to get it out on the page or on the screen and suspend your self-critical dimension. Because if you don't, by the time you get to the end of the second sentence, you're already editing yourself and now it's over. It's dead. It's smothered in the cradle.
Whether you write it, someone writes it, co-write it, ghostwrite it, however it's done, do you feel like everybody has a book in them?
I feel like everybody has a book in them or some form of writing in them. It may not be a book. It may be, and I say this in all sincerity, it may be a blog. It may be a memoir. It may be a children's book. Everybody has a story in there that could take different forms, and every one of them is as legitimate as every other one. They may need somebody else to help them get it out. It may even be a partnership process. Bob Berg had, pieces of the go-giver in him.
Mm-hmm.
But I did too.
Right.
And it was like the 2 keys you need to make the nuclear bomb go off. You couldn't do it with just 1 key. Chef Charles Carroll had this idea for this story about a 14-year-old boy who's lost a dad, who's hurting, who's suffering, and he crosses paths with this crusty old diner chef, and who becomes Mr. Miyagi, and it is the Karate Kid meets Master Chef.
It's got to be amazing when you start to have a collaboration with someone and things click. I'm assuming that not all of your clients over the past. Have you ever had any projects that started but didn't finish? Or maybe I shouldn't ask you. Okay, so that happens. That happens too.
I have projects that I have bailed on.
What makes a good client for you?
I have to fall in love with the story.
Mm-hmm.
I have to click with their values. We may be very different people. I've written memoirs of arch liberals and arch conservatives, of men and women, young and old, people of very different types. I don't have to be them, but I have to click with them. I never served in the military. I have never shot a gun at anybody. I am not a sniper, but Brandon Webb and I are like good buddies. It's like we just clicked. I have to click with their values, and I have to fall in love with their story or with the story that they want to tell. And I have to see myself in it. It's what I imagine it would be like to be an actor playing a role in a film, like you're going to play Gandhi or Abraham Lincoln or Ray Kroc or whatever. You got to be able to find that person in yourself. And there've been writing partnerships where part of the way along I have said, you know what, I'm so sorry, I can't do this, and we'll have to part.
All right, so you've gone on this entrepreneurial journey into this new side of things with this book that you are taking on in the self-publishing world, and then actually going to be doing a lot of the marketing, which is why you're doing things like podcasts, which is kind of crazy because which brought us here.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that our connection, Jackie, put us together from Steve Olster's New Media Summit. Man, it is so amazing how connections work, because I'm telling you, you have been on my I gotta get John David Mann on my podcast list forever, and I just have not had that chance or opportunity where I thought that we would have a connection in common. Except I should have thought, well, Bob Berg and I are at least we're correspondents. He knows me, we know each other, but just never got there.
Yeah,
so, but keep on your entrepreneur hat for a second. What are some of the struggles that you deal with outside of the marketing stuff that we just talked about? What are some of the struggles that you deal with just as a business owner, just trying to keep your business rolling? Where are your challenges in your day?
Yeah, well, Chef Charles and I faced the decision 6 months, 8 months ago, something like that. Do we want to self-publish this or not? And both of us have full-time jobs, if you want to use the word job. We are full-time busy.
Yeah.
Him running food for one of the busiest country clubs in the nation, River Oaks Country Club in Houston, Texas, which is kind of top of the food chain of the country club circuit. Me writing books. I got a book that's got a deadline of November 1. Right now we're speaking on October 18, and I'm nowhere near done yet. Good Lord, man. Am I crazy? Yes.
Is a publisher waiting for that book, or is just your client?
Expecting it on November 1, and I better deliver. So the first challenge was that neither of us has time for this. Neither of us had the experience or the expertise or the know-how to do this. And so you have to ask some critical questions right away. The first thing I asked myself was, who am I going to trust? I needed to decide who my sphere of experts was, my brain trust. Mastermind, if you will, that I was going to go, who are my go-to people? One of them was Bob Berg, and there were others, people in the field of self-publishing that I was going to learn from and do what they say. Mm-hmm. We had to make decisions about what to not even try to do, what to accomplish and not even try to accomplish. Not even going to try to get them in airports or bookstores. Mm-hmm. Not even going to try.
Well, that's not where that's going to it's going to feed your ego, but it's not going to feed your bank account. I mean, the internet is everything, and personal, you out there hustling, just doing speaking engagements and selling 1,000 books, doing a keynote speech, man, that's going to put some deep cash in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. Cash. And also, we believe that there was a marketplace for this book. Our challenge is we need to reach them. We just need to let them know we're here. They need to know we're here. We believe that if the right people know about this book and read it, they're going to love it.
Yeah.
Now, we can't control, if the book sucks, then there's nothing we can do.
Doubtful. It's
people
doubtful.
Read it, right, but we don't think it sucks. Our experience.
Right.
I had I recruited 175 people in my early circle of readers, pre-pub. That was my customer test group. And that 175 people were freaking out, bringing in their moms and their dads and their kids and their brothers and sisters and colleagues.
I have it in my hands, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I really am. I wish I had a chance to open it prior to it. Not for sale. Advanced reading copy, not for sale. I'm reading it.
It's better this way.
It is. It's totally.
You got it ahead of you. But so we faced enormous challenges in trying to figure out what we could and couldn't do to identify and reach that marketplace. And, without a huge budget, without a lot of time, without a lot of resource. Every entrepreneur faces that. And, it's good because if you had unlimited budget, entrepreneurs I know have more told me that they get killed by too much money, not too little money.
Yeah. No, I agree. And thank you by the way, for signing. I just realized that you actually signed this copy. I'm opening up. I'm like, hey, holy shit, he actually signed this. This is very good. I didn't even know it came from you directly. I figured, he's some highfalutin guy. It's going to come from.
I stuffed the envelopes. I addressed the envelopes, man. I licked the stamps. Yeah.
I can't, it's so beneath you, John.
Here's one thing I learned about books. I used to do layout when cut and paste was an actual physical description.
Yeah.
Cutting with scissors, pasting down with rubber cement on the cutting board. I've done physical layout, and my philosophy is that if you want to really be skilled at something, learn it in the physical realm. I've never bound a book, but I've done every other aspect. This book, the layout is all done by me. The typeset, the layout, the cover design, you name it, I did it all. The only thing I didn't do was the cover painting, which I hired a friend of mine to do.
So I have to assume because your business to a certain degree is only scalable to a certain degree. You can only work with a certain amount of people. So again, are you pretty choosy with who is coming to you, or not with who's coming to you, but who you're saying yes to? You really have got to fall in love with those. Unless, again, you don't. What's your machine look like on your side? I
say no to so many. Well, I don't say no, but I demur from so many projects. I am growing my stable of friends who are writers, who I consider good writers, because I'm constantly making referrals. People come to me and say, hey, I got this great book opportunity to do, and man, I love that idea. I can't do it. Schedule's full. Too many planes in the runway already. So right. I have to be very choosy, and just a matter of time, as well as what I'm finding is that I've done the huge books and memoirs and all kinds of books, but the books that I most love doing are these little kind of miniatures, these parable style books. That's just so pushes my buttons. I just love it.
Oh, so, I love those too. Same. The Who Moved My Cheese type of books are 110, 115 pages. I mean, those are my 2-hour read, and I love it.
They look so easy and they're so hard to do well. And that's the challenge I love most.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that there could potentially be somebody out in our audience right now. I don't know if you're, I know you're promoting the book. Are you also potentially promoting the opportunity for someone that has a story that wants to share it, to reach out to you to talk, or do you not want people doing that? It's up to you, John.
I don't mind. Chef Charles knocked on my door. I never heard him from, I didn't know him from a wooden post. In 2009, he Facebooked me and said, hey, I got this idea for a story. I'd love to write it with you. And I was like, yeah. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that,
Right.
But he told me the idea for the story, and I instantly fell in love and said, I got to do this book. It took us years to do it, but, it was like Bob Berg, same deal. Bob Berg, Chef Charles Carroll, other books. My agent came to me one day and said, I got this book, this story at Navy SEAL Sniper. I mean, you don't do military books. And I was like, I got to do that book.
Nice.
So, most books I can't do because of time, but hey, you never know what's going to just fit.
No, I agree. So whether you have a pitch for John David Mann, or whether you are a lover of his writing, he has written, I think, what'd you say, 24 freaking books? Is that how many you have?
Something like that.
24 books on the market right now. Just go to Amazon, just type his name, you'll see them all. We're looking really today to promote The Recipe, which is his newest, and I want him to succeed at it for no other reason other than he's actually marketing this thing on his own. And well, you know what? I'd like to make it a little difficult for him. Don't buy his book.
He'll hate it. First of all, you probably don't care about personal growth or leadership, so that's already a minus. Here's another strike. Food, you don't really care about food. You're not that interested in eating or cooking, so that's another strike against the book. Finally, you hate good writing. Just don't like it. So you know what? Don't buy this book. It's not for you.
That is perfect. What a great promotion. I'm sure Chef Charles, is that his name? Chef Charles is really going to appreciate that promotion. John David Mann, my friend, my new friend, thank you so much for sharing not only your inspiration and your wisdom, but your great words on paper. So thank you for being a part of the Nice Guy community today.
Oh, it is and has been my pleasure. We'll do it again sometime.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice and the power of a great recipe. Check out The Recipe. Information about how to reach out to John David Mann will be in the show notes, and how to get a copy of the book as well. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Fill up your week with the Nice Guys. The Nice Guys on Business are publishing 5 episodes a week? Isn't that against the Geneva Convention? Oh, I see. Running away, eh? You yellow bastards. Come back here and take what's coming to you. I'll bite your legs off.